L'chaim, everybody. L'chaim, l'chaim. Dum ba bum, bum ba ba, da dee da 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 da, hi da da, hi da da, ha dee da dee da da, hi ya da dee da ya na, ya da dee da da da, da dee da da ya, dee da dee da da, dee da dee da da da. He na ni na 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 ni na ni na ya na ni na ni na na. A little music to honor our roots here at the Happy Minyan. Thank you so much for hosting tonight. This is sushi and learning, which turned into also a beer chametz party. All the delicious chametz that has not been consumed has been put out on the table. So. Thank you very much. L'chaim, l'chaim. So, tonight, I thought of doing a few things. First, of course, the must-know things. And then also some deeper insights into Pesach. So I was emailed, I got an email yesterday from my mom. She's on some Jewish, listserv. And she wrote, and somebody wrote in there, I have all the suggestions for how to handle Saturday night going into Passover. And honestly, I could not understand what they were talking about. It made no sense. The person was like, well, it's going to be difficult because, as if this had never happened before, right? Well, it's going to be difficult because, we want to make Havdalah, and then we'll have one glass of wine, but then there's going to be the Kiddush, and we don't want to lose a glass of wine, and so what I advise is to do this. They came up with this whole concept of what to do as if it had never happened before in Jewish history, Saturday night Passover. It was amusing, but also, it was also sad, right? It was sad. Because I happen to know that the people on this email list, this is not like a middle schoolers email list, right? This is my mom's chevra, they're, let's just say, they're experienced Seder providers, right? Okay, so they've forgotten. And additionally, I was sad because there is obviously a very well-established way that the sages fashioned so that we would know what to do on a Saturday night Passover. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. But before we get to that, and I just had to share with you how funny that was. So what I did was I said, I'm going to write out for this, my mom, and I said, you can share this with your friends if you want. Here's what the Shulchan Aruch recommends you do. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Why do I bring this up, however? Which is that we are so fortunate. The depth of tradition that we have and the wisdom that goes along with it. And the piece that I published, I don't have it, in the Passover, let me give a pitch for that Passover book. I'll hold it up in front of the camera here. So in front of the Haggadah Companion put out by the Happy Minyan. So here you go. So what I discussed was that Passover doesn't need a reimagining, but rather we reimagine ourselves on Passover. Everything about Pesach is so awesome. What really needs to be reimagined is us. We don't have to come up with new things. We can just reevaluate and reimagine how everything this applies to us now, and how we can use it to transform our lives. Okay. Amen. Okay. But let's get to a couple of things. The first is that to remember that chametz becomes forbidden this year on Saturday morning, on Shabbos. And somebody called me today also. They said, isn't that kind of rude to Shabbos? I mean, it's only going to get a little bit of challah. I said, it's okay. The sages said it's okay. It's okay to not have that full Shabbos experience because you're about to go right into Passover. So when does chametz become forbidden? And I'll explain why I'm talking about this. It becomes forbidden. Anybody? Like around 10:30 on Shabbos morning. So you have to daven early, have lunch early, etc. Normally, all of that's done on the day before Passover, which is a regular weekday. But just you should keep in mind that we do the fast of the firstborn on Thursday. Thursday night we do bedikas chametz, not Friday night, right? We make a eruv chatzeros, which is a prayer that allows us to cook and to prepare food. So we're preparing food on Erev Shabbos. We're going to prepare it. You could make one. Work is permitted Friday afternoon. Normally Erev Pesach, you don't work, but because it's not really Erev Pesach, you're allowed to work. You can kosher. You can do all these kind of things that normally on a regular Erev Pesach we wouldn't be doing, but because it's Friday, we do them because it's not really Erev Pesach. However, we must seal up and cover all the places unless you need that for Shabbos. So if there's something you need for Shabbos, you leave it uncovered. But everything else, you should go into Shabbos as if you're going into Pesach. Here in California, we advise people to have their chametz outside, to not eat indoors. And like a shank bone should be roasted before Shabbos. All the Seder plate items should be done before Shabbos. Lettuce or romaine that you're using for the Seder should be checked on Friday. Charoses should be made before Shabbos. Salt water before Shabbos. All these, even some people put together the Seder plate, whatever the basics, some do it beforehand. Seals on wine bottles or matzah boxes that might involve tearing words or something like that should do it before Shabbos this year. Friday night, Shabbos morning, I won't get too deep here, but just to remind you that if you can, eat your chametz outdoors. Have a regular Pesach meal indoors with either Pesach, plates and cutlery, or disposable if that's compostable or however you roll, right? And then what you do is you just go outside for hamotzi and eat a little bit outside, a kazayas worth. Any leftover chametz, okay. And by the way, at 10:30, you got to wash your mouth out, clean your beard. Doesn't apply to all of us, I see. Okay. Thank God. And then you just finished it's like having a Passover meal. And then the rest of the day on Shabbos is like Passover, as far as food goes. There are some who are lenient and have egg matzahs. It is not my custom, but I just point that out because it is some people's custom.
How late can you do the egg matzah? All day long?
Yeah, you can do the egg matzah all day long to those who do eat it. But it's usually for people who have trouble digesting. Usually egg matzah was created for people who have trouble digesting regular matzah, not as like a workaround to eat some matzah before Passover.
So it's not just for the Shabbos before Passover,
right?
Once every so many years. Okay, I hear.
You had a question there? Sorry.
So what is the reason eggs should be held off until first Seder? Because egg is a component of the Seder plate, so you're honoring it and not addressing it until
the roasted egg?
Yeah.
The roasted egg we roast before Shabbos also.
Oh no, but you were talking about the egg matzah.
Oh, egg matzah. Yeah, there's a kind of a matzah which instead of the flour being mixed with water, it's made with eggs. The liquid.
Oh, so there's actually no wheat in it at all.
No, it is. It's wheat and egg.
No water.
No water. It's called matzah ashira. That's the technical rabbinic term, enriched matzah, and it is for people who have digestive issues. That's what it's for. Fruit juice, or egg, and so forth. You'll see that advertised, or you see it in the store. You'll see those, and that matzah should only be eaten by those who cannot digest regular matzah.
So it's kosher for, sorry.
What is the reason that preferred not to do it before?
Oh, so some people want to make hamotzi. Thank you. Some people want to make hamotzi later because they didn't wake up on time, or whatever. That having breakfast, they want to have a big meal at 12:30 on Shabbos day. So Ashkenazi Jews can still say hamotzi on the egg matzah, so they could have like a regular timed meal with egg matzah. And there's nothing wrong with it. If that's one's custom, you can do that and so forth. It's not my custom, but I bring that forward. Sephardim, though, are out of luck, I believe, because I'm not sure even they say hamotzi on egg matzah. So.
Is it true that you can't plan for the next day? So, like if you're doing the first Seder, you can't plan for the second Seder?
So that's a little beyond the scope of today's class. The question was about preparing one day of Yom Tov for the next day of Yom Tov. The short answer is whenever you're doing something for the first day of Yom Tov, do a lot of it. Okay? Because then you use some of it on the first day and you can use some of it on the second day. Right? If you just make enough for yourself for the first day, then you have to start all over again, or you're tempted to want to make something later on the first day for the second day. So what you do, so you do, but it's a much bigger subject that I can get into tonight, because that's more like Hilchos Yom Tov as opposed to this year's Pesach Seder. Okay, so forgive me.
Setting up the next day.
Yeah. So even setting up the Seder. So a lot of people will not set up tables until Saturday night.
Wow.
after dark. Right?
I'm getting around that. I'm setting up my table Friday afternoon.
Yeah, you can absolutely. So what we're doing is the same thing. We're setting up our Seder table Friday, and then we're going to have Shabbat dinner outdoors
That's right.
on
Outdoors?
on a picnic table. Exactly. That's that's why we pay $12 million a month in rent, right?
That's what you think.
It's so that we can have Seder once every 20 years outside and not worried it's going to rain on us. Okay. We really, though, should be careful to not do any Seder preparations before Shabbos is over. Okay? That is a big one. It's tempting. It's very tempting. And what do you do with little kids? You got little kids. A lot of people these days want their kids to go to bed on time. They have 6 o'clock's bedtime. It's going to be 6 o'clock bedtime. So you could make a little mini Seder with egg matzah for your little kids. Yeah, Rabbi Yona's got solutions here. We don't just bring problems,
I like it.
right? So make a little, if you want to make a little mock Seder with your little kids, because you're so concerned that they get to bed at 6, or the parents really need a break and they want to put the kids to sleep and they want to have their own Seder, Gesundheit. Make a little mock Seder with egg matzahs for the kids. Do not use regular matzah. It's forbidden to eat regular matzah the day before Pesach. But use egg matzah for the kids. How about that one? Okay. We like solutions. I got it? Okay. We'll talk more solutions. Okay. Any more questions about just this process? And then I'm going to speak next about Yaknahaz.
About what?
Yes.
Egg matzahs
Yes.
during Pesach.
Yes.
For those who don't eat gebrach, the egg matzahs count as if you made them.
Yeah. Okay. I had the question probably. If a person doesn't eat gebrachs, in other words, they don't eat matzah that comes in contact with water, what do they do regarding egg matzah? Is it permitted to have egg matzah that comes in contact with water? I believe the answer is they will not do that. Yeah. Okay.
Just, what extra components are there to the Shabbat morning service when it falls on Pesach?
There's no extra components. Normally, Shabbat Hagadol, that's Shabbat Hagadol. In some communities, they have something called yotzros. These are additional piyutim, prayers, poems that are said on Shabbat Hagadol, which is such an important Shabbat. Those are not said in synagogue this year. For those communities that do say them, they don't say them in synagogue this year because it would push off Shacharis too long. And they want to finish Shacharis and have their first meal by 9:30 in the morning.
Those are starting earlier.
Very early.
Is the possibility
Yes.
that Happy Minyan?
Happy Minyan start at 7:45, I heard.
Is it set?
Kahal Hasidim start at 7:15.
Is it out? Did we publish it yet?
Okay. Now, most people will, who are very fastidious about their Shabbat observance, will have a short meal, take a 10-minute break, go walk outside, and they'll bench, have a little break, come back, have another meal. Or maybe they'll divide it up this way, like what we're going to do. We're going to have hamotzi, fish, salads, bench. Then we're going to come back and we're going to have hamotzi, something else, maybe lox. I don't think we're making it cholent. Maybe we will. That's really living on the edge. And then fruit for dessert, because you can extend the meal. You just can't eat chametz, right?
Can you
So
make a cholent without beans? Like if
you could make a cholent without beans, but you'd have to use, if you want to make a Pesach cholent,
Yeah, Pesach cholent.
so which is just basically onions, potatoes, and meat. Yeah, you could do that. That they call that yapsik in Poland.
What about
Or yapchik.
cabbage or carrots or?
Go for it. Go for it. Yeah. Okay. What do you do with the chametz that's left over, guys? Uh-oh. You can't burn it. You had to do the burning beforehand. You put it into the city's receptacle, or you flush it down the toilet. And I advise not flush it down the toilet because
You'll have problems on Chag.
you're gonna mess up everything, right? Can you imagine you plug the toilet before the Chag even started? All right.
Forget that.
Okay, TMI, right?
People
Okay,
told me to do that. I don't want to do that.
okay, and then
The garbage is fine. right?
the city's garbage. The city's not your garbage.
But if the
The
city garbage is on your property.
It doesn't matter. The city owns the garbage can,
Okay.
so it's their garbage the minute it gets in there.
So there's no time I can get rid of it. I could even get rid of it later in the day on Saturday.
No, you got to get rid of it by 11:30.
No.
The city owns the garbage cans officially here?
The city owns the garbage cans. We rent them.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because if the
Yeah, you
trash
can't-
can break,
you
all
can't
the
put
city can
out-
replace it.
I can't save money and be like, I'm just going to put out my own garbage cans. You can't. They won't pick them up.
Somebody said you could just wrap it in a bag and wait till after.
I told you what you're allowed to do.
Oh.
What other people say, I cannot take responsibility for. I told you what to do.
Okay.
Everything else is I cannot.
Different opinions. Okay. Whatever.
No. Just there's a lot of misinformation out there. You know, we live in an age of misinformation. Okay. Now the last thing about this whole issue is that if you don't want to have two meals in the morning, please don't feel under enormous pressure. There are people who just have one meal and sacrifice a meal, and instead of a third meal time in the afternoon, they just have fruit or fish, or stuff like that. Or Pesach cakes, which whatever they're doing. Okay.
Was that instead of a
So you cannot have any kinds of, some by the way don't even have a big meal, like they want to make sure to have a big appetite for the Seder. That again, that's already a high level. I want Seder's not going to be till late here, guys. I mean, it's much later in other places, but
And then you got the questions and all that before you
Okay.
get to the food.
yeah, the food comes in a while. Okay, what is yaknahas?
Yeah. What is it?
Okay, anybody yaknahas? It is not Polish. Yaknahaz is from the Gemara. So basically, what happens like this: Friday night, Saturday night, we have Havdalah, and we have Kiddush at the same time. So there's a Yaknahaz is like an acronym, mnemonic. Yaknahaz. So it's Yain,
Wine,
Kiddush, Ner,
candle.
Havdalah,
Oh, we got
Zman. Luckily, the traditional Haggadah has this all in order. This is what you do, contrary to whatever my mom sent me via email. God bless her soul.
Can you repeat that?
I sure. It's Yain. So you say Saturday night. You're going to say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Borei Pri Hagafen. Okay, and everybody should have wine. And that's your first cup, by the way. Like every year, the first cup is Kiddush.
Okay.
Second, you do the Kiddush, right? Yak Kiddush. Right? Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher B'cham B'nei Olam B'kol Manashon B'kol V'Shazav V'Zit and okay, all the way Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanim. Amen. Do not drink. Hold your cups. And then we do either on the Yom Tov candles, which have to be lit before the Seder, from a pre-existing flame, you make Borei Pri Eish, or like our custom is, we actually bring little tea lights to the table and a pre-existing flame, and we put two candles together and do it like Havdalah style, okay? And then we put them down, but you can't blow them out, right? You can't blow them out. So that's Ner. So that's like a regular Havdalah Ner. Besamim don't get used until the end of Pesach, if it ends on a Saturday, no, we don't even use it the Saturday night. There's no Saturday night, so you don't have to worry about it. We won't use it for a couple weeks, the Besamim, this year. Then we do Havdalah. Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Amavdil Ben Kodesh Echol Ben Or Lechoshech. Then we do that after the Eish. Then we do the Shehechianu. Shehechianu V'kiyamanu V'higianu Lazman Hazeh. Then we sit, or if we're already sitting, then we drink, leaning to our left side. That's right. That's how we do Kiddush and Havdalah. It's called Yak Nahaz.
Second cup is then at that point?
No, that's the first cup.
Still
That's
the
the first cup. All the first cup.
Okay.
First cup of wine. And it's all right there in the Haggadah where it's been for a few thousand years. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. So that's another special thing about this year, to really know. And again, people, we forget. You know, even though this happened before in all of our lifetimes, we forget, or maybe, wherever you were, didn't know about it and forgot to do it, so, but that's the cool way about learning a little bit, getting into the mindset now. Yak Nahaz. Can't blow out. That's why you don't use a regular Havdalah candle, because you can't extinguish it in the wine like on a regular. I use 2 tea candles. Others have a custom just to look at the candles from the Yom Tov candles. I point there as if they were there. They're not,
Now you have something to do with that little stub that was left over when you went and bought a new Havdalah.
They,
Put it in a holder.
you could burn up that end of the Havdalah candle. Correct. You absolutely could, and just let it burn, baby, burn. That's right.
But it might put itself out. I mean, is that a problem?
That's fine. That's good. You want it to do that.
The only way.
Yeah, because you can't put it out.
So here's a question.
A Yak Nahaz question?
Yeah.
Okay.
The candles that we're having, but you're lighting from the candle from...
Pre-existing flame. A yahrzeit candle that you've lit from Friday afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah. Very important to you light. I always light it, it's, by the way, today you can buy like a 3-day Yom Tov
Yeah, I was
candle.
wondering, is that what you need?
So I do. I light multiple ones.
Okay.
I light backups.
Just in case they go out.
Yeah, they're affordable. It's easy. you know.
Do you also, is there any memorial that we do at that time anyway?
No memorial. We do Yizkor the last days, on the last day of Yom Tov, not the beginning. Good question.
If you lost somebody, you light candles very hot.
If you lost somebody, right, some have the custom to light only after the first year on Yizkor, but I always tell, today, I advise, don't wait. Grief is tough, and if it helps with the grieving process and the transition, then you should totally just light. So if you lost somebody, God forbid this past year, feel free to light a yahrzeit candle. Come on in, there's still sushi. Okay. Pardon? No, do not light any candles for the hostages, please. Do make prayers for them.
Yeah.
Give tzedakah for them. Invite 20 extra guests to your Seder for them. Yeah. That is I have a whole philosophy about this, and I have an article, don't leave an empty chair at the Seder.
No.
Okay? Last year, there was a thing, leave an empty chair. I said, no. Have 2 extra chairs filled with, more people, more Jews. The way we combat the darkness of our days is by bringing more people to the Seder. That's the way to do it.
Isn't there a prayer for captives or something?
You can, Achenu. We sang it here last year at the public Seder.
Yeah.
Don't say Matir Asurim. That's when you say that at a different time.
Okay.
Okay. But Achenu is a prayer for those in captivity. Go for it. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the actual Seder. Everything we've talked about up until now has been preparation. However, I will tell you that preparation for the Seder is your best course for success at the Seder. The more we prepare for it, it just helps a lot for everything to go smoothly and fun.
I have one more preparation.
Sure, one more preparation.
Wait.
Go, no problem.
When is the fast for the firstborn this year?
Thursday.
Thursday.
So if you're like me, who doesn't like to fast, you want to find a place that's doing a siyum, right? Most synagogues and other places are doing a siyum. That is a little ceremony at the completion of the learning of a tractate of Talmud. It happens that we just finished Sanhedrin, the Talmud Sanhedrin. So a lot of people should be making, in the Daf Yomi cycle, a lot of people should be making siyumim. Okay. Any other preparation questions? Okay, let's get into it a little bit. I want to talk about a couple different things. First is a lot of people have trouble with the length of the Seder. And I find that the 2 ways to handle this best are, 1, to make sure the Seder is as interactive as possible, meaning that everybody gets a chance to read something or do something. If everybody feels involved and necessary in some fashion, the time will fly by faster. But if they're passive and all they're doing is waiting for that meal, it can seem like eternity. Okay. Another 40 years in the desert. Okay. So, I don't advise you using this Seder that I wrote. It's called the 10-minute Seder. However, if you want to know everything that has to happen at a Seder, I put it into this 10-minute Seder. It's been downloaded tens of thousands of times. There's a website, 10minuteseder.com. We originally made it to use at music festivals when we were doing Passover at Coachella. And a lot of people use it. And it's great because it's kosher. If you do this, I even added in Dayenu, which you don't need to do. The most beloved part of the Seder is actually
The singing.
the singing.
I love it.
Okay. But I will put this in the show notes, as they say. the 10-minute Seder. If anybody's looking to make sure they hit all the things they need to do, that's in this.
These are 4 cups
Pardon? 4 cups.
in 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Ooh.
you'll remove.
Yeah, but don't forget.
The table.
Don't forget the 4 cups. The minimum. I mean, I think the smallest is 3.2 ounces. You could get by with 3.2 ounces of grape juice
Oh, really?
or wine or light wine. Today, when you see cup, don't think those big
8 ounces.
wine goblets. I have these wine goblets, these gorgeous, wine goblets. They probably like 12 ounces, You'd have to I don't know, call the emergency services on for me or something if I had 4 of those. Can you imagine 48 ounces of wine?
Can you mix it with Mayan? Can you mix it with water?
You shouldn't mix the wine with water, but you can mix it with grape juice. Yes?
I just said it'd be a bottle in the third, because a bottle's 3.
A bottle's. Oh, look at you. Okay, yeah, but yeah. Oh, yeah, right. I would be totally gone,
But
right?
if you intermix it, people intermix it with food and then spread out the time. It's not
So I have
6
found.
out in 6 hours.
I have found that what a lot of people do when the big glasses of wine are put out is they sip the wine, and then when the next cup comes around, they haven't finished the last cup, and then they just top it up. So what I do at our Seders is I put out small cups. This is your wine cup.
3.5.
I usually do 4 to 5 ounce cups, but 5 ounce cup filled most of the way is good. Doesn't have to go to the top, just has to be mostly full. 5 or 6. Right.
You buy special cups just for that?
So then it's the proper process, and it's not just symbolic.
Correct. That is right.
Smart.
I have at home 30 5-ounce wine glasses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that we once bought that we still use. They're great. They're but for community seders, I put out a plastic
Plastic?
a cup that's a 5-ounce cup. Okay, so that was your question about the 4 cups, and it's very important to drink those 4 cups. It's really, really important. It's not just like a nice thing to do, and it's not about getting drunk, right? It's about each cup is connected to one of the ways that God rescued us from Egypt. Each cup is its own mitzvah. How do we know? Because we say Borei Pir Guffin on each cup.
Time, huh?
That's right. Each cup is a Borei Pir Guffin. If it was just like Purim and we want to drink a lot, there'd just be one bracha. Each cup of wine is a mitzvah.
So that's 4 to 6:13.
No. In the 613, they're all included as one mitzvah that has 4 parts.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
How come it's the only time we do 4 cups of wine with 4 Priya Gaffa?
Passover is this just absolutely special time. There's just everything about Passover is special. Everything. And it only comes around once, right?
Right.
I'll give you another thing. Here, you could share this idea at your Seder. Anybody here ever say, the temple's rebuilt, or sing Yibanei Hamikdash? Anybody ever talk about the temple being rebuilt? Maybe a little bit? Okay. Right.
It's at the end of the Haggadah.
It's at the end of the Haggadah, Hashanah Haba B'Yerushalayim.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's talk temple. There's so much that happened in the temple that we cannot do today.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just we don't have a temple. Almost like half the mitzvot in the Torah of the 613 can't be done without a temple.
Wow.
How many is that we can't do about?
About
355.
That we can't do?
306.
that we can't do.
The one we can't do? Oh, that we can't?
Right, we can do like 300 today, right? What is the number? It's like half.
Is that right?
Not even 290. Depends if you live in Israel. If you live in Israel, there's a few others you can take Truma and Maisa, everything. So. Okay. Do you know how many mitzvot have to do with eating the sacrifices too?
Oh.
Right? You bring a sacrifice,
Sure.
you got to eat it. You can't just toss it up there. You got to have dinner.
On Passover especially?
It's a mitzvah to eat those things. On Passover, it's a mitzvah to eat the Passover. That's why, by the way, Friday afternoon, Erev Pesach, we don't do any work because we should be busy preparing the Pesach offering.
Right.
That we don't have a Pesach offering doesn't make us allowed to go do our stock market stuff. There's one mitzvah left over from temple times where eating the food itself is a mitzvah. Shabbat, is it a mitzvah to eat the food? It's a mitzvah to have a meal, right? But the actual, you could have salmon, you could have turkey, you could have whatever. The food is up to you.
How about the bread or the wine?
The bread's up to you. If you want to have a challah, you want to have a bagel, you want to have a pita, as long as you make hamotzi. Yes, there's beautiful traditions. I like having challah personally, etc. But you'd be fine if you had matzah on a regular Shabbat.
Yeah, except the Sephardim, I heard.
Sephardim. What are we going to do with that? All right. So, but there's one time a year when the food itself is a mitzvah to eat. That's the matzah on Pesach.
Matzah Pesach.
The matzah on Pesach, literally, the matzah is a mitzvah. It's such a profound idea that it goes all the way back to the earliest days of the Jewish people, and it never stopped.
Until the end of Passover Seder, you eat the rest of the matzah. That means your Seder's complete.
Oh, if you eat the whole matzah to the end of the Seder. Right, we do. We split at the Seder, we split the middle matzah, right? One part's the afikomen. That's supposed to be the last thing that we taste at the Seder.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's only a mitzvah to eat matzah. This is a tongue twister. It's only a mitzvah to eat matzah on the first 2 nights here, or in Israel, the first night of Pesach. The rest of the holiday, you don't have to eat matzah.
What about Seder Mashiach?
You can't eat bread, but you don't have to eat matzah. Sudat HaMashiach is a custom, beautiful custom. I call it the Baal Shem Tov Suda. Beautiful custom. Everyone comes together at the end of the holiday. But again, it is not a halachic requirement to eat the matzah then.
I got one question. When you say preparation, can I eat matzah? Somebody said not even the whole month of Nisan, or is it just the week or the day before, or like?
There are different customs. The most important one is what the Shulchan Aruch says.
Okay.
You can't eat it the day before.
Okay.
That's the most important one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I could sample my shmura matzah now if I want to see how good it is.
I would.
Someone's being kind.
I would go according to the majority opinion, which is not to have anything from Rosh Chodesh Nisan.
Okay.
Because there's a great reason for it. Right?
Yeah.
We want that when we eat the matzah, that it's like we're having something new
Special, yeah.
and special, right? And human beings, we just get accustomed to things so fast, and we just forget how special things are. So to overcome that, especially, we should refrain from matzah at this point. Okay. Another beautiful idea about the Seder. So, okay.
Seder's made especially for the children. What do you do for
Oh,
your
great!
children?
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, could you do the 10-minute one for your children?
Okay, great. First of all, you absolutely can use the 10-minute Seder for kids, and make it interactive. By the way, I called the 10-minute Seder. You can make it last
I can
25
extend
minutes.
it.
You don't. I just wanted to show that you could do it in 10 minutes. You know?
Yeah.
I got a call today about children in the Seder. The situation's like this. There's a family get-together. Not all the kids go to the same Jewish school. Some go to this school, some go to that school, some go to another school. And also, one of the kids is extremely bright. And last year at the Seder, whenever the host of the Seder would say, well, who knows, blah, 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 the same kid, before anybody could even press the buzzer, right? Nobody could press the buzzer. This kid's like, duh, and he's got the answer right away. Moses, yeah. So I said, this is not my first time hearing this question. We came up with this problem, long time ago. And my solution to it was like this, is I bring a kid forward and I ask them a question for them. each kid gets their own question according to their level. So it works so well. I don't know if you were here last year, but we did that, right? This kid wanted to come up. His brother's like, 10, and he's like 4. They both want a question. You can't ask the same question to the 4-year-old as the 10-year-old. The 10-year-old gets a complicated question. The 4-year-old gets a 4-year-old question. What's the name of the holiday? Pesach. Yeah. Right? The 10-year-old gets, how many Seders do they make in Israel? Right? You can. So that's the way. So with kids, I would even advise, and I even brought one of my books. I have this book, which is not in English, unfortunately. This book has questions for kids. And, right, She'elot liyaldei kitot gimel ad daled, right? Questions for children between 3rd and 4th grade, right? And then a few pages later, it'll have, She'elot liyaladim liyaldei kitot hey ad vav, right? Questions for children from grades 5 and 6. Mi shomai shana im ein yeled. Who asks the question, ma nishtana, if there are no children present?
You can't insult people.
What if you're the only person at your Seder?
Oh, yeah. I guess
You
ask
say it yourself.
right?
And so actually we do it mevugar. We do the opposite. If there's no children, we have the oldest person say it.
Really?
Yeah, right. So I love this book. I love this book because it has questions at different. By the way, they didn't write this book because of what I was saying. It just happens that I've used it every year for this reason.
Super. It's only in Hebrew?
Yeah, but you can find other things online, or you can just go up to the Haggadah and make up your own questions.
Sure.
And that's preparation, right? That's Seder prep. Have like beginner, easy, advanced questions. And then the more you get the kids involved with questions, the more they're going to remember, enjoy it. There's such a tendency for adults to want to over-intellectualize. And guilty. Okay. And to over-philosophize and to spiritualize and everything. But really, we have to remember, if you got kids at the Seder, they're the focus.
Okay.
The next thing I wanted to say about this matter is that I really think it's important. This is my own personal opinion. Take it as it is. I was asked, what do I think about doing something different at the Seder in honor of the hostages who we want to be freed immediately? And there's all kinds of stuff out there. Oh, you should do this at the Seder for the hostages. You should do this at the Seder for the hostages. I kind of mentioned at the beginning, and please, anybody who knows us knows that we pray constantly for and advocate for those in captivity. At every Havdalah that we do prayers for those in captivity, etc. Passover is a joyous time. It is a festival. It has to be joyous. You want your children to remember Pesach. Don't go sad. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't mean to ignore the fact that it exists, but do it in a joyous way. Sing, say Alachayim, may they be released as soon as possible, and so forth. Please don't drink salt water, as one person has advised.
Tears.
No, really. It just don't do it. Don't make your Seder bitter because of this tragedy that's happening. We need to advocate, we need to feel, we need to pray, all these things. But Pesach is Pesach. It's not the first time in Jewish history that bad things have happened. I'm sorry, it's not the first time. And guess what? Unfortunately, it's not going to be the last time. Right?
May it be the last.
I promise, I would love that. But until Mashiach Tzeit,
Right.
right, chances are there will be other bad things.
For sure.
Don't diminish the joy of your Seder because of the anti-Semitism in the world. The opposite. Your Seder should be so joyous and so full of life that it just dispels more darkness. And questions and making the kids happy. By the way, you want to make them even happier? Give them a candy when they get the question. Right or wrong? Right or wrong? Right? Just the fact that they answer the question, they get a candy. They get a candy. Kids, this is how we make every. And if you want to honor adults, I wouldn't give out candy. Some candies might like the adults. I know you can give the adults something else. I don't know. A l'chaim. I don't know. Money. Give them money, right? Not the hard on the.
Isn't there some part of the Seder where we remember like the hard times and the tears?
Sure, we do. Absolutely, we talk about it. We absolutely. We don't ignore suffering in the Seder.
Right.
Right. In fact, what we say is Baruch Shomer Avtachot Yisrael. Blessed is the one who keeps his promise. Right? God said to Avram, know that your seed shall be strangers in a land not theirs. They shall be enslaved and afflicted for hundreds of years, 400 years. But the nation from whom they slave, I will bring judgment after they come forth with great sustenance. So the covenant that God made with Abraham, the original breach, the original covenant included that the Jewish people will be alienated, that they will be in servitude, and they will have affliction. We do not avoid these things. We discuss them at the Seder. Right? It says, Set ulamad at the Seder. Go in and study. Only time the Haggadah uses this term. Why? Because it wants to point out, when we do the answer, the Haggadah wants to point out that the Haggadah will explicate all the first, except for Armi Abdei Avi. My father was a idol worshiper. So the Haggadah does not go into detail on this in order to not lose track of the narrative that it wants to talk about. So it even brings up difficult pre-Pesach issues, right? Pre-Exodus issues. And it says they made us bad. And if you read the Haggadah, it says they made us bad. They made us become bad. In other words, and I like this line. What does it mean they made us bad? They make us out to be bad guys in their eyes. They made us bad. No. The Egyptians,
Wow, that's interesting.
the Egyptians made the Jewish people be the bad guys.
Did they internalize that? Did
And then they believed it.
Yeah.
And then they acted upon it.
Huh, that makes sense.
So, again, we're not ignoring that these things happen today. We're not ignoring the reality of anti-Semitism. It's important that it be mentioned and read about and so forth. But do not lose track of the holiday. Okay, we have time for a couple more questions. Believe me, I love Pesach so much, I could just talk and talk and talk.
I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. I have like 3 or 4 more classes up online.
At what point in the Seder can we open up the bottle of slivovitz?
Yes, great question. Schlivitz can be had with the meal. You're not supposed to have any other food when you have the first matzah, achilat matzah, and then korech, right? So you can't have any other. You're not supposed to have any other food except for when you do the berei pri adama or shahakol.
And what is our preferred slivovitz here? at Happy Minyan?
Well, I am quite partial to the Mosby Slivitz,
Which one?
which only can be acquired through a donation to Pico Shul. I purchased the entire. I have the entire stock of it that we made. When Mr. Mosby, when Gary Mosby passed away, Al Shalom, his son basically donated the rest of the. He donated the rest of what we had produced together. He donated to Pico Shore.
It's strong though, huh? It's
No, it's delicious.
made from
It's delicious.
plums.
Oh, thank you. One more thing. I really wanted to say this. I brought this up. Do not assume on Passover that just because something says 100% agave, it's kosher Pesach tequila, or for that matter, potato vodka, or anything like that. Very, very much. As somebody who's worked in kashrus
Okay.
and who works with people who really work in kashrus, like major, it's very important that your Passover spirits be kosher Pesach with a certification. I don't make any money by saying that. We have a list that the Phoenix VAD, the Rabbinic Council in Phoenix, put out. I have a list from Mexico City, from Devorah Leah and her husband, who have a do hashgacha work there. So I have a list there in Spanish from them. Also, if you go to the Star K, or they have and the CRC, I believe, have lists alcohol that have been supervised, and mostly they're ones that have a P on them. So I don't think it's a good idea just to grab anything. It's really, today you really need to make sure that it's what, because they can always change. Let's say you have a run. So here's how it works. You did a run of tequila and it's only 38%, and you want to bump it up. So there's no hesitation. There's no one there to say, oh, don't put in the grain alcohol to bump it up. There's no one there to say that. And then they make it, and then you've got chametz. So, and the most prevalent alcohol in the world is from grain. It's not from. So, right, it's cheap. You're not going to top it up with high grade tequila. You'll top it up with just, rubbing alcohol. Not real rubbing alcohol, but you know what I mean. So that's one thing I really wanted to say about Pesach. Just a general kind of thing. Luckily, at the kosher markets and other places, if you live in a place that does not have a kosher market and you're wondering what you should do, you can check out the list. I will post the list in the show notes of the Phoenix VOD. And these tequilas are available all over the country. Should you need to have tequila on Pesach? I like the Shlivitz. Shlivovitz. There's the Yelenik Shlivitz. Some of it's kosher Pesach and others.
The silver patron I heard was kosher.
Look at the list. Look at the list. I don't remember. It's like about 50 tequilas now, but
Silver most likely, unfortunately, the Reposado and
yeah. All right. Any other last questions? All right. I want to wish everybody a Chag Kasher. Yo, you have a question back there? Okay. I want to wish everyone a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. May all of our prayers and all of our Sedarim tilt the world to the side of merit, so that this be the last Pesach in exile, and that after our Sedarim, there will be no doubt that Hashem has to bring a complete and speedy redemption to the world. Our Seders will tip the scales towards redemption.